The next topic is dyslexia. Dyslexia is characterized by difficulties with accurate and/or fluent word recognition and by poor spellings and decoding abilities. Now, dyslexia is a learning disorder that affects our ability to read, write, spell, or speak. Interestingly, kids with dyslexia are often very intelligent and hardworking. They only have problem in connecting the letters to the sounds those letters make. Also, another important or interesting point, or you can say the aspect of dyslexia, is that it is linked to genes and it runs in families. For example, if you have someone in your family who has this problem or who suffers from dyslexia, there's a likelihood that other members of the family can also suffer from this kind of disorder. So when we're talking about dyslexia, we see that basically it takes into account not only simple just one area which gets affected, but also combinations of abilities and difficulties that one can feel or go through in one or more of these areas, which is reading, writing, language, and numeracy. The accompanying weaknesses can be among the following, which is short-term memory, also sequencing, auditory visual perception, language and motor skills, etc. Dyslexia is independent of one's socioeconomic background, and it can still be there in the presence of normal intellectual abilities, and it has been seen that people who suffer from it, they demonstrate other abilities in a very enhanced and positive manner. So let's look at dyslexia and some of its characteristics. Now, looking at what dyslexia is, in a person with dyslexia, the brain processes written material differently. Now, this makes it hard to recognize, spell, and decode words. People with dyslexia have problem understanding what they read. It is a neurological and often genetic condition, and not the result of poor teaching or poor methodologies or instruction or upbringing. Studies have shown that between 5 and 15% of people in the United States have dyslexia. Now, what are the symptoms? The symptoms are difficulty in reading, or you can say difficulty in learning to read. Now, dyslexia is different from delayed reading development, which may reflect mental disability or cultural deprivation. The most common signs and symptoms associated with dyslexia can be displayed at any age, but they are present in childhood, or you can see that the majority of the cases are being reported among children. Now, childhood symptoms of dyslexia, as we have seen, are some of the problems in terms of demonstrating difficulty in learning to read. That shows that many children with dyslexia have normal intelligence and perceive proper teaching and parental support, but they have difficulty learning to read. Then you have milestones reached later aspect, where we have seen that children with dyslexia may learn to crawl, walk, talk, and ride a bicycle later than the majority of others. Then you have delayed speech development, which is a child with dyslexia may take longer to learn to speak and they may mispronounce words, find rhyming challenging, and appear not to distinguish between different word sounds. Another symptom is slow at learning set of data, which takes us to the spelling, where some children with dyslexia might not follow a pattern of progression seen in other children. They may learn how to spell a word and completely forget the next day. Then you have speech problems, which is if a word has more than 2 syllables, phonological processing becomes much more challenging. For example, with the word unfortunately. Now, with this word, unfortunately, a person with dyslexia may be able to process the sound un and li, but not the ones in between. Another area or another symptom can also be that at school, children with dyslexia may take longer to learn the letters of alphabet and how they are pronounced. There may be problems remembering the days of the week, months of the year, colors, and some arithmetic tables as well. Now, treatment, psychological testing. Now, this basically helps teacher to develop a better targeted program for the child. So, in terms of the suggested treatments, we have the psychological testing. So, to able to design or develop these kinds of tests which can facilitate or enable teacher to come up with the exact picture of the state of a child suffering from dyslexia. Then guidance and support. That can be done through counseling, which can minimize any negative impact on self-esteem. So, dealing with these children suffering from dyslexia, one has to follow a counseling approach where the self-esteem of the child is not hurt. Then ongoing evaluation, which is developing their coping strategies and identify areas where more support is needed. So it is basically ongoing evaluation and come up with multiple strategies where people suffering from this disorder can cope the difficulties that they are facing. And how it can be done? It can be done by having ongoing assessment to develop dynamic and multiple strategies. So dyslexia is a condition that makes it hard to learn to read and develop other learning abilities. It happens when there is a problem with the way the brain processes graphic symbols.